Gentlemen, it's great to be back. Another Friday night, and you know exactly what that means. It's time for some furious, ferocious Formula 2 competition here in the Creator Series, powered by EA Sports. Joining me in the commentary box for a happy homecoming in Formula 1 terms, the birthplace of the World Championship itself, it's Joseph Simmons. Joseph, how are you doing, mate?
I'm good. I'm very excited to get going tonight, considering the action that we had last time out. If it's anywhere near the same, then I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. If you haven't seen the previous goings on, that was also a mystery. All of the drivers had no idea until very recently where we were heading tonight for Silverstone. Last week, though, it was Portimao, the Portuguese Grand Prix. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out so you can catch up with all of the lore and the knowledge. As you can see, this is what the calendar is looking like. Week number 8 of the round number 8, for that matter, of the F2 Championship sees us at 3 question marks, that being Silverstone, and you can see the rest for yourself. Silverstone, though, should be an interesting spectacle. High speed to mid-speed for the majority of it. It's all about carrying that momentum. We say this at every single track, but especially you want to keep the miles an hour on. You want to keep your foot as flat to the floor as possible, but as we say many times, you can't afford to be desperate and you can't afford to throw your races away before they even really get going.
It's a track that definitely encourages you to be aggressive, and that is where some drivers can find that their races unravel. But yeah, I mean, it is all about that momentum. It is all about that risk taking, and whether those risks are calculated enough, or if they aren't, it's all going to be up to the drivers tonight. There's no real effects of the circuit on their actual driving style as there would be at the likes of a Monaco or a Hungary, where the walls feel so close in. You don't have that at Silverstone. It's very, very open. It's very, very free. It encourages mistakes.
Absolutely. We saw a lot of that as well at Portugal last week, actually. We saw how, well, the battles were brilliant, but equally, you are shooting yourself in the foot a bit. You are bringing yourself back. And where we've seen how powerful DRS and Slipstream have been and how big of an asset they have proven to be. So it'll be interesting to see the dynamic here. I think there's been a lot of learning from last week in terms of when to pick your battles and when to just hold back and bide your time.
Yeah, last week was it was a great demonstration of those sorts of things, with some of the drivers maybe missing the mark a little bit with when they made their overtakes, some being little bit too overzealous. One driver, though, who managed that all perfectly was Formula Kareem. So in the sprint race, his overtaking, it was maybe a little bit too harsh, and he didn't climb up the grid as quickly as he would have liked. In the sprint race, in the feature race, though, he rectified it all.
Absolutely. We saw it with the tyre difference as well. We saw the softer compounder tyres, the younger tyres, play their part absolutely peerlessly. But this is a great segue, actually, to Formula Kareem. I mean, the main thing I've written down here in terms of the championship context is consistency is key. And I think no one embodies it better than Formula Kareem. I mean, to give you all some statistics and context here, he's won 4 feature races so far this season. He's been on the podium for 6 out of 7 of the feature races that have happened. And by both, and also to add on to the fact and to just hit the point home, he's also won 2 sprint races and been in the top 3 for, if I am seeing things correctly, that would be 4 of the sprint races so far. And the majority of the time, of course, not only is that from the back of the grid in the sprint race, but he's doing that for the feature race as well. So he's just ticking off a little checklist, isn't he?
Yeah, he's going on all these little side quests, and he's still coming out 47 points ahead of Kryzix, and almost 100 points, almost double what F1 Scott is on now. So is it over double, actually? Hang on, it's exactly double what F1 Scott has now. So I mean, it's impressive what he's doing, because he's, as you say, consistency is key. But if you've got the pace, that could really help as well.
We'll see what car he's in this week, because he was in the Campos last week. He's been slowly auditioning for every team around the F2 grid. He's been passed around a little bit, which I think is pretty unkind, not going to lie. But somehow it still hasn't satisfied a team. He's still looking around. He might be in Campos this week. I have no idea. But if he is, good on him. If not, shame on you, Formula 2. That's very rude. The gap to Kryzix isn't completely insurmountable, though. There is still time for for Krysics to slowly chip away at that gap and reel himself back into this fight. But, I mean, we've seen the momentum that Kareem has carried week on week, and it's going to be a tall order to really knock him off that pedestal.
I think Krysics has a really, really good chance if there's any mistakes from Formula Kareem. But yeah, the consistency that he's brought to this season is the reason why he's so far ahead, because Krysics does have the pace. He definitely has the pace to be beating everybody else week in, week out. It's just that he's got Formula Kareem there already in that P1 spot, and he's just there to take that second place, to take those maybe those other spots. But if he's there to take advantage of any possible mistakes that Formula Kareem will make, then he'll be in an absolute world of opportunities.
Some delightful dueling on the horizon. We thought we were going to get some of that. It was a bit of a foreshadow to it midway through the feature race last week, but I'm sure there are many good battles to come. Of course, it's very notoriously, the fall is significantly quicker than the climb is, and Kareem could easily be the designer of his own downfall as well. So never count that out. It always seems completely set in stone, but one bad weekend could completely change things here.
Yeah, it will do. And
we're going to carry on chatting, ladies and gentlemen. Just for context, in the background, apparently the sprint race is underway. We're having some trouble just getting ourselves into the swing of it, so we'll keep chatting your way for a little bit, and hopefully we shall join in with the proceedings very, very shortly. But let's talk about Silverstone a little bit more. Obviously, in real life, it's seen a very fortunate fairy tale. So Lewis Hamilton took his first race win since Saudi Arabia 2021 in Formula 1 terms. And we also saw the future context of things. Kimi Antonelli winning his first Formula 2 race in the sprint, in the wet conditions. It never ceases to surprise, does Silverstone? It always has a fairy tale in store.
Yeah, it's one of those tracks where there is going to be there's going to be something week in, pretty much week out. Every single season, Silverstone will throw something up, whether it's Formula 1, Formula 2, anything that races around Silverstone. It has the opportunity to just surprise. It's one of the most historic circuits on the calendar as well. It's probably one of the best races of the year in terms of overall, just overall prestige, because you've got the history behind it. As you say, this is where Formula 1 began 74 years ago. This is where so many ridiculous races have been run. Crazy races have been run as well. And, crazy races have been won. As you mentioned, Lewis Hamilton winning this year completely out of the blue. That was just it. It was an impressive victory for him. But Silverstone, it's the circuit for the United Kingdom. When you think of a race in Britain, maybe if you're a little bit older, you look at Brands Hatch. If you're significantly older, then you definitely look at something like Silverstone. And if you're younger, then you definitely look at Silverstone, because it's what's earmarked being British in terms of being a racing fan, because it's on the Formula 1 calendar. They've got endurance races that used to be held here in the past. They've got pretty much everything. And yeah, it's just such a historic
history of it behind it. It has been the predominant server of racing in the United Kingdom. F1 for the British Grand Prix, at least. Well, Donington, I believe, served as actually the European Grand Prix, but it is a British venue nonetheless. It also served up a little bit with Brands Hatch back in the 1980s. So that was a fun time indeed. But Silverstone, in terms of, obviously, Monaco, you have the prestige. Monza is the temple of speed, among other things. But Silverstone is the birthplace of the Formula 1 Championship. And, we could sit here and talk about historic moments at Silverstone for hours, but what is your most historic, your favourite memory of Silverstone?
I'm sure it will become a memory in time. At the moment, it's committed to the front of my brain, but Lewis Hamilton taking victory this year, it was just so poetic. the way that he was able to take that victory, and the fact that he took that victory after over 100 races without any sort of success on that level of any kind, I think that will be committed to memory for an incredibly long time. But yeah, Silverstone, there's so many moments that they could have tossed up. So I'm sure with your answer that you're about to bring up in a second, it will be completely different.
Of course, I mean, Sir Lewis Hamilton winning this year is interlaced in my brain. I can't deny that whatsoever. I think maybe not like at the forefront of my memory, the most favourite one. Definitely a quirky moment from Silverstone, which I certainly enjoyed looking back on. I wasn't born for it, but it's fun nonetheless. 1998, ladies and gentlemen. Remember that? Michael Schumacher won in the pit lane that year. So that was a fun year as well. So there you go. It serves up all kinds of wizardry, does Silverstone. But ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about the drivers who are racing this week as well. Back to F2 for a little bit. I'm sure you'll be pleased to know. But big news on the F2 circus, because we have got the return of Adam Sanderson this week for the British Grand Prix. We have got Mr. Gwatz, who's also here. We've got Formula Kai, he's here for 2 weeks in a row, but all of the drivers that are here pale in comparison to one driver, and one driver only. Gareth Allen is racing tonight, and he is in the Trident car. Joseph, what can we expect from our very own Gareth Allen?
Well, I mean, should I be nice? Should I be mean? What should I do? Well, I'll be nice.
Let's be nice. He'll watch us. He'll watch this back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we're going to see something from Gareth. I'm sure there'll be a point in the broadcast where we're going to cut straight to him. But I think generally he's a very good one for bringing up some sort of action, making something happen at any point in the stream. And I think this is what we're going to get. I think this is what we're going to get from him tonight, whether it's an incredible overtake for P19 or whether it's a ridiculous crash. He will cause drama at some point, and yeah.
Well, Creator Series, ladies and gentlemen, can be quite the content farm, and Gareth Allen could possibly be at the very forefront of it. I like particularly Joseph saying something will happen when Gareth Allen is around, and it couldn't be more right. It honestly couldn't be more right. Sprint race though, reverse grid as it always is. Well, reverse championship grid if you are a reserve. Sorry, back of the grid for you. But reverse grid, whilst we're building up to getting into the action, you can't afford to be desperate. You can't afford, I mean, like you say, the ill timing of some drivers is ultimately what broke their races last week. So still lots of learnings going on, but equally not a lot of time to do it. They want to be ascending as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and it's a track that lends itself to moves like that. Like, just, I think if you're wanting to win from the rear of the grid, I think Silverstone is up there as maybe one of the top 3 or 5 tracks where you're going to be able to pull something like that off. And yeah, I think it would just be. It won't be surprising if we get something like that, but we're about halfway through the sprint race. There has been wet conditions. It is now completely dry, as according to some of the drivers' POVs, and they've switched onto the soft compound of tyre on lap 5 of this race. I think soon we're going to be able to bring you the action from the Silverstone, from the Silverstone race, from the British Grand Prix that we've got so far. And yeah, Formula Kareem, he's right up there at the moment. Fastest lap. He's second of those soft compound tyre runners. And at the moment, he's looking alongside Luke Howitt like they're going to be near the front of the grid. Kryzix is in 3rd place of those soft runners. DRS has just been enabled, so it's been deemed dry for the drivers to run around. Although if you're watching some of the drivers' POVs, it's still a little bit slippery at this point in time.
It's all going to get very, very interesting. And ladies and gentlemen, we are getting right into the thick of things. That would have been my other point, actually, in terms of what you said, Joseph, talking about the weather. That would be such a big one. Of course, we're at the British Grand Prix. You can't ignore that weather is going to be a factor, and it's already played its part. So they have to do all of the calculations to make sure they get it bang on and get out at just the right time.
Yeah, it's something that you have to do on the fly, and that does make it incredibly difficult, because if you get it wrong, then it could destroy your entire race, especially with only 11 laps in the sprint race. You could get it incredibly wrong, and it's such an easy decision to get wrong, because it's the only one that really matters in the grand scheme of things in this race, because, you know, if you time it completely wrong, if you switch onto the softs too late, you've been undercut, and that's your race almost over. If you switch, though, too early, then those tyres will be shot, and, well, I mean, you've probably gone around in the meantime. So it's a difficult balance to find. It's a difficult... it's incredibly difficult, and it's one of the things that is underrated in terms of difficulty for these drivers. Most of them won't have engineers, because this is Creator Series. This isn't tier 1 of a serious league race. This is content at the end of the day, and yeah, I think some of them, they'll be taking these pit stop moments as content. So yeah, very few engineers, I think, up and down the grid, but that means that it's so much more difficult for those drivers to make those decisions on the fly.
I'm just looking at the point of view here. Kareem's absolutely pushing Luke Howick down towards Cops. He's down the inside. Through goes Formula Kareem. At least he thinks he does, because round the outside goes Luke Howick using the momentum. They're closing up very quickly, though, on Dragonflies. And, would you believe it, Joseph? Gareth Allen. He's here as well. My goodness me. He's getting bullied through Maggots and Beckett's. Luke Howick and Formula Kareem are trying to go through as best they can. This is absolutely unbelievable stuff, and they're finally managing to surpass it. Goodness gracious me. I apologise, everyone. Oh, we're back now. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. We're back at Silverstone. My goodness me. What a time. Well, they've managed to get past the wet weather runner of Gareth Allen. They've still got Dragonflies to go, who has a 12-second lead. But my God, we've seen last week just how quickly the gap can be munched down. It was 5 seconds a lap in Portimao. I mean, I know they're playing for time and for maybe a potential safety car, but surely you've got to throw in the towel sooner rather than later, because it's killing your race.
Yeah, and we just saw there a moment from Gareth Allen on the track, and what a moment it was, as it was actually the race for P2 as Gareth gets out of the way. For quite a few drivers, he drops down to P14, and his broadband is very much enjoying him racing around the British Grand Prix. Surely he's not that far away from Silverstone that it lags that badly. He can probably go turn up to the race, try and set a few hot laps there at the moment. But Formula Kareem, yeah, he was 11 seconds behind just a couple of seconds ago. He's now 8.5 seconds behind. So he's very much closing in, and Luke Howick is able to keep it in. Pryzik is able to keep it in as well. So it's the top 3 keeping through. Kareem and Pryzik usually out there. Luke Howick not having the greatest time last week. He's looking to fight back here, and he'll try to fight back with the DRS down the main straight, even if he doesn't have it at this current point in time. But the Dams driver is right on the rear of Formula Kareem, under 2 tenths behind as they head through the final sector, and a move could be shaped up for the provisional lead of the race here.
Yeah, I've just seen Razin Chai's also racing. He's going into combat with Adam Sanderson for P6 as they head in towards the left-hander, round the outside. Tries to go Razin Chai, and he gets it done. Has the inside line for the right-hander, and the AIX car through and ascending up the order into P6. But Prema Power tries to reign supreme. Adam Sanderson basically darting from underneath the diffuser, and they pushing the diffuser of Razin Chai as they head in towards Village, into the right-hander. But he better be careful, because Ricky in the high-tech is all over him, and a moment of DRS could swing things in a very vicious way for Razin Chai, as DRS wide open, maximum flappage for Adam Sanderson as he pulls to the inside into Brooklands, and it should be an academic pass, and it certainly is. Through goes Adam Sanderson up into P6, albeit though with a penalty to his name and going slightly wide at Lovefield. You might make the move at the first DRS zone, but it's not set in stone, not even slightly.
It's always maximum flappage when we've got Adam Sanderson on the grid, and he's back here, but he's still fighting with a penalty. Speaking of penalties, Luke Howick has picked up 3 seconds worth, so That pretty much throws him out of that top group now with 3 laps left to go in this race. It's unfortunate for him, but the fight ahead for the lead has began and ended. Formula Kareem is into the lead. Kryzix has followed through on Dragonflies, and he tries to follow through on Formula Kareem as well. He's to the inside. Kareem has the outside line. He's got the grip, but Kryzix has taken the position. P1 for him, but Formula Kareem is to the inside of the final chicane. Who's going to come out on top? It's going to be the ART. It's Kryzix back into the lead.
I can only assume there was a horrendous crash behind. Gwatz is out of this race, went insanely wide at Maggots and Beckett's, but Kryzix left the inside line open. Kareem's always going to accept that invitation. Some simply rapturous racecraft from the championship top 2, but there's still plenty of time to go in this one. And Luke Howick, as much of a penalty as he might have next to his name, for pride's sake, he'll want to be first on the track. There's always a little chip on your shoulder, that psychological barrier playing games with you, just saying you might have it, but I'm coming through. Down the inside goes Formula Kareem, smoke billowing up from the tyres, and he gets the car stopped in time. They remain side by side through Luffield. The outside momentum remains marvellous, and it's going to be side by side all the way down towards Cox between these two. Neither wanting to leave any stone unturned. Kareem goes round the outside, although Kryzix biding his time, waiting for that DRS. We saw how powerful it was last lap, even with Kareem having the assistance of the flappage. Kryzix through Maggots and Beckett's he goes. He has another bite of the cherry to now go for, as the DRS will be wide open towards Stowe Corner, hunkering down into the slipstream underneath Pirelli sponsorships. And the time is right to dive to the inside once again. It's calculated from Kryzix. He knows exactly where he needs to be to have the lead at the end of this race, but not before Kareem tries to send one to the inside again. Throws Kryzix off kilter. It's a switchback and slight contact on the back of the ART car. What a fantastic battle for the first place position. And it's far from over with 2 laps to go.
Yeah, there's 2 laps to go, and don't forget as well, Luke Howick, even though he's got 3 seconds worth of penalty, he could still have an effect on this, on track at least. And, well, it doesn't look like at the moment Kryzix and Formula Kareem are going to be split by a single hair as they head through the first sector now for the penultimate time in this race. The ART has the track position, the Campos driver has the DRS, he has the outside line. Can he take the position? It looks as though he's going to try to cling to the inside. Kryzix holding the outside, just squeezing Formula Kareem enough. But Formula Kareem, with the exit, makes the move. He's in P1. Kryzix is still going to fight this one back. They are still going to fight this as they head into Cops. But a Formula Kareem, he holds the track position. Kryzix with a switchback move. And he's got the momentum now. He takes the position. Formula Kareem, he's not going to give this up easily. And I think one of them's going to have to yield. And the one that looks like he's yielded is Kryzix.
I think this is all very calculated from Kryzix, though. It's really intelligent what he's doing. He knows exactly what he needs to do to retain the DRS and make sure he can use that slipstream in towards Stowe, although being threatened by Luke Howick. Again, Kryzix goes into combat with Formula Kareem, has the inside line for the left-hander as he used the outside of Stowe, but supreme late braking from Kareem keeps him at play at the front of the field. And as we enter the final lap, he is at the front of this train of cars. So perhaps he's now done the calculations. He wanted to be ahead for this final lap. It's all going to unravel. The mystery and marvel of the cunning and wile of both of these top 2. Don't forget Luke Howick, of course. He'll want to be P1 on the track. He's keeping them very, very honest as they head onto the Wellington Straight. And Joseph, here we go again. It's combat stations for Kryzix. However, he's really actually dropped the ball out of the village complex, half a second behind. Kareem did more than enough to keep him at arm's length, and through Brooklands and Luffield, no ruffling of the feathers necessary in terms of Kryzix's plan of attack. He has to bide his time as they now head towards Cops as we get to the end of this sprint race. It's going to be tantalisingly close to decide the winner of this one.
This is what separates these two from the rest of the grid. The racecraft that they've demonstrated over the last 11 laps has been sensational. But as is the story of the season, Formula Kareem has just edged Krajic's out so far. And it's just a couple of corners to go to see whether the Frenchman can do anything. He's got one more stretch of DRS to go. The flap is open and he's pulling to the inside, following Kareem's slipstream, pulling even more to the inside. And Krajic's takes the lead. The ART driver in the Alpine livery looks to be ahead, but Formula Kareem gets the position back. A wobble from Krajic's means that they're going to continue to fight through the final couple of corners. Further contact between Krajic's and Kareem, but it's the Frenchman out on top. Luke Howard takes second on track. Formula Kareem drops to third, but second after Luke's penalty is applied. But that was the finish that we are so glad to see. This is what Creator Series is all about. And Krajic's and Formula Kareem, they have put on an absolute show. And it's only the sprint race.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. If you ever needed the incredible illustration of why these two are right at the front of the championship, this is why. What a performance from Krajic's and Kareem. Credit to Luke Howard as well for having the pace to keep them just a little bit more uncomfortable than they perhaps would have liked. But Krajic's gets the sprint race win. Fantastic effort from the ART driver. And I can't believe I'm saying this. This season, it's actually the first race he's won at all, sprint or feature. He has finally got a win on the board in some capacity. And that will get the ball certainly rolling as we head into qualifying and then the feature race soon. Onto the podium we go. And at the birthplace of the Formula 1 Championship, only one can stand on top. And in a sprint race at least, with an awkwardly long handshake, it was Krajic's. But now to the final standings of the sprint race. We got to see the end of it, and the end was certainly excellent. Krajic's your winner for ART. Formula Kareem claims P2 after the time penalty from Luke Howard for Dams is applied. Rasin Chai ending up fourth. Didn't talk about him much after his little DRS train battle with Adam Sanderson and Ricky. But kudos to him. P4 for the AIX driver. T-Mac in P5 looking to continue his good form this season. Adam Sanderson in P6 for Prema with Ricky. F1 Alex in P8. That guy Vince in 9th. And Formula Kai rounding out the top 10 with Duncan Ultra Killer in Fratic. Black Mia. And then it was Dragonflies where everyone else DNF'd from the race. Including, rather unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, the great Gareth Allen. He did retire from the race. He stuck it out on the wet tyres. He tried to brave it as best he could. But there is only so much consolation we can give him. So there we go. Sprint race done and dusted. I do apologise you didn't get to see as much of it as perhaps you would have liked. But I'm sure what we saw sufficed. I mean, honestly, that's probably just the perfect marker for how the rest of this, how the dynamic of this week is going to unfold.
Yeah, it is exactly what we want to see in Creator Series. It was an incredible battle at the front. I don't think we switched back to anybody else for the last 5 laps of the race, and there is no reason why we should have switched back to anybody else, because all of the action was in one place, and it was just those two. What an incredible battle. And in the end, the underdog coming out on top.
Certainly. Well, you did say he does have the pace to be right up there. He has got a Formula Kareem to contend with. Haven't seen them lock horns too much out on the track, but that was a tremendous starting to proceedings. So we turn our attention away from the changeable conditions of the sprint race. And now on to qualifying. Of course, one shot, as it always is in Formula 2, but the pressure is certainly on. It's weighing you down almost insurmountably. They've got to be so careful not to breach the track limits. A lot of track to play with, no barriers making them claustrophobic, but they have got to get it right to just improve what has already been an incredible weekend.
Yeah, well, one-shot qualifying, that is where mistakes can be drawn, because you're feeling like you have to push so hard. You only get one shot at it as well, and well, obviously, hence the name, but you get one shot at this qualifying session. And, well, we've seen in the past drivers just struggle, maybe even losing half a tenth, half a hundredth, and that could drop you significantly down the order. It's going to be closer than maybe you'd expect and then you might have the regular retirees deciding to start from the back of the grid. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to get an incredible battle for that pole position.
Yes, our qualifying predictions were slightly put pay to last week, in rather unfortunate circumstances. But, you know, you can't win them all, so what can you do? But this week, it's a new week. It's time to turn over a new leaf, Joseph. Who do you think is going to be on pole position for the feature race?
Oh, we're not going to go for either of those two, are we? Because I think we can already pick what they're going to do. I'm going to go for T-Mac, because he got decent points in the sprint race. And, well, he's somebody who's demonstrated pace, especially over the last couple of weeks. And I think, yeah, I'm gonna go for T-Mac for this pole position.
That's a good shout. I concur. He should. I hope he does very well. But I'm gonna say, and you'll never guess what I'm gonna say, ladies and gentlemen. I think pole position is gonna go to Gareth Allen. And now for a slightly more serious tip. Sorry. I think Racin's got a good shout. I'm not going to lie. I think his pace at the end of the sprint race was absolutely excellent, and he went slightly under the radar, to be honest, because we were so focused on the front three. I mean, you couldn't take your eyes off them. They were genuinely gorilla glue to proceedings. But I think Racin's got a good shout. I think he has got genuine pace in that AIX car, and I think he can spring a surprise and put himself right at the front of the field. But then, of course, we have the feature race. And it was well, there was a lot of safety cars last week, but it will be tyre talk, obviously, especially with the safety cars. A lot of confusion, of course, as to whether people had pitted onto both compounds and whatnot. Also, whether you bit the bullet in the first safety car or whether you tried to eke it out more and more and more. And that's ultimately where Kryzik's dropped the ball last week. But those key decisions, if there should be safety cars, which, knowing F2 Creator Series, there probably will be. But those key decisions can go such a long way in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and I touched on it in the sprint race. That decision to switch between the wets and the softs, the timing of that decision was absolutely crucial. I think it was a little bit more, though, clear-cut what they were going to do in that sprint race. It was going to be wets onto the soft compound of tyre. We have, though, a feature race ahead of us. We have maybe a dry one, maybe a wet one. We haven't seen yet what the conditions are going to be like, but that will throw something into it. The tyres won't last as long. It won't be as easy as I'm going to slap on a set of softs and that's going to be it. That's not going to be possible in this, because at some point, even if it is completely bone dry, you will have to make the decision to come into the pits. And some of the drivers could go for completely different strategies. I've seen in previous weeks some drivers just winging it and going, I'll do whatever I like. But yeah, we will have to wait and see, and we'll have to math our way for Gareth to go up to the top. We've got to maybe start the rainbow challenge, but start it on the final lap of the race where he's already done the wet stint, something like that.
Absolutely, this is our master plan, ladies and gentlemen. Little do you know. DRS trains. To talk DRS trains, we saw it a little bit at the end of the sprint race with a couple of 3-car trains making their way through. I think we will see a little bit more of that psychology at play in terms of waiting a little bit, because you know how powerful the DRS and slipstream are going to be, and you will be behind at that DRS detection point. It's just about the calculations, but those DRS trains are going to play a massive part in this one.
Yeah, they're able to stick with it just because there's a couple of those sections in, the last few, obviously across the. I'm trying to remember now the names of the straights, but you've got 3 straights almost back to back to back. There is a few corners in between them, but they are pretty close together on the circuit, and that's where you're going to see the DRS trains start to form. It's not going to be as dramatic as Las Vegas, where they're all going to be just heading down in essentially a train throughout the entire race. It's a little bit more varied than that. Mistakes can cost you a little bit more here, but I think it's certainly going to be an interesting talking point. I think it's certainly going to be something that will decide who wins this race or who gets good points in this race. Whoever can keep a DRS train decently managed, I think will do incredibly well.
Exactly. Not like Not the manic roller coaster ride that Portimao was, but Silverstone, character all the same, and we love it for it. Like Joseph said, a few overtaking spots to be aware of. We've got the Wellington Straight and the Hangar Straight, of course, DRS straights. They'll be big talking points. We've, of course, got the run up to Copse if you get a good exit out of Luffield. And the Hamilton Straight, start-finish straight, past T1, go for a potential dive into Village, turn number 3. Because that corner is so squared off, there is the opportunity to do that. But at the start of that race, I mean, everyone's going to be having that same idea to try and get to that inside. It's basically who dares to dream the most, but you can't afford to make a miscalculation like that very early. I mean, granted, safety cars will probably save your bacon. We saw it last week, but it's all about momentum with yourself. You've always got that little voice in your head, kind of just trying to guide you along the way. And if you are making mistakes, that voice grows louder and louder, and it's really tricky to shake that off as a driver, isn't it?
Yeah, and especially around a track like Silverstone, which is very punishing for mistakes, and it is going to be difficult for a driver who makes mistakes to shake it off. And I think qualifying as well, that is a place where you don't want to make a mistake. In a race, maybe you can recover from a mistake if you have a safety car. Obviously, it is Creator Series. There is likely to be safety cars, and there is likely to be there's likely to be an opportunity for you to make it up. One shot qualifying, though, as I mentioned before, you get one shot at it. And I think that's what we're about to load into now. Oh, what timing that was, as we are going to head to qualifying in just a couple of moments' time.
Waiting peacefully and patiently on the Hamilton Straight for the drivers to emerge for qualifying proceedings. One of the most prestigious venues on the Formula One calendar. In fact, nay, of all Formula One history. Silverstone never fails to disappoint, and today we hope shall be no different. I mean, if the sprint was anything to go by, I'd suggest that we're in for a real treat. Just a few seconds left before we get into the qualifying battle. Let's ride on board with, I'm going to go for, let's go for Gwatz. I think Gwatz is a good shout. Let's go on board with him. And Joseph, take it away, my friend. Take us through a lap of this historic Silverstone circuit.
We'll just watch on board with Gwatz as he's headed through turn number 1. It's a very difficult corner to actually head through if you have, well, 20 other drivers trying to traverse it at the moment. Whether there's just one of you on the circuit, it's absolutely fine. And then he's about to come out onto the first DRS straight of this circuit, that being the Wellington Straight. Coming down there is going to be incredibly quick, but then you have to brake sharply, more sharp than you'd think, into Brooklyn. Now coming out of it into Luffield, it's all about keeping the minimum speed up through essentially the entire first sector, and then just that little bit after until you come out onto the second circuit, or the second full circuit on the lap, obviously, with the main straight. You're not able to complete the entire thing in one lap. Then Copse, which has seen many an incident over the years in the sprint race. We saw some incredible moves being made into it, but then after Copse is, well, an even more risky overtaking zone. Maggots, Beckett, and now Chapel, which is what Watts is heading out of, and down the Hangar Straight, the second DRS zone of the track. And again, it's another one where you're going to have to brake sharper than you think you're going to have to, because it looks like an inviting corner to send it. But as anyone who's driven this circuit will know, it is not quite that easy. Then Vale, before you come out, final corner club, and you head onto the Hamilton Straight. That is a lap of the Silverstone circuit, and it's a lap where Adam Sanderson has prevailed.
Look at that. I'm sorry, I've just seen how close the gaps were as well. That's absolutely unbelievable. Credit to Adam Sanderson. He's your pole sitter, but less than a tenth behind last week's feature race pole sitter when eventually we got going and we weren't stuck in perpetual purgatory at the start. It's Nogueira. I was almost a prediction Prince to be crowned a king, but Racing came third place. Ricky in fourth, Testwell in fifth, Luke Howick in sixth place, with F1 Alex a nice seventh place. That guy Vince in 8th, Gwatz in 9th, Blackmere in 10th, Infratic just on the outside, or just nearing the outer reaches of the top 10. And then we have Dragonflies, Ultra Killer, Formula Kai, our very own Gareth Allen, T-Mac, Duncan, Kryzix and Formula Karim, would you believe it, disqualified and right at the back of the grid. Thank God we didn't choose them as our prediction picks, Joseph. Well, on to a very, very short rest between qualifying and the feature race. And then, ladies and gentlemen, wake up. It's race day. My goodness me. Time moves very fast in the Creator Series. I do have to tell you this. And now it's a feature race. And it's set up to be quite the spectacle, isn't it? Adam Sanderson, back after a week off at Portimao. A happy homecoming for the Prema driver. And he's put it on pole position. There's been a bit of a trend of happy homecomings in qualifying. Just needs to translate to the race now.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll go back to it just momentarily. Remember my prediction? He also decided to get disqualified. So, I mean, I didn't pick Formula Karim or Kryzix, but I wasn't too far off. But yeah, I mean, Adam Sanderson, we've heard in the pre-race chat that he's had more experience in the last few weeks around Silverstone than anybody else. And of course, our very own Devon Butler. It is his home race. And so he'll be hoping to perform as well as he can, maybe a little bit less confidently than Devon Butler, maybe a little bit less arrogantly is probably the right word to say than Devon Butler. But the Prema car will lead us away for the formation lap, and you know what happens after the formation laps, ladies and gentlemen. It's lights out.
Absolutely. The anticipation is brewing up as there's plumes of smoke going out of the first corner. I saw a little tap on the back of Adam Sanderson as well, so he might well be in the process of being disqualified from the formation lap. Hopefully that's not the case, and his tyres aren't, well, more acclimatised to an Eskimo than the actual Silverstone Grand Prix track. So, we're at the feature race. I do have to ask now, predictions. Who do you think is going to win the feature race?
Well, I mean, let's not look at any of the predictions that I've done in the past with you in the last 2 weeks, because they've not done well. I've turned over a new leaf, so my prediction is going to be completely right. And I'm going to go for maybe somebody who we've not mentioned so far this broadcast. I'm going to go for Testwill to take the victory. I've got absolutely no backing behind that apart from vibes alone, but he starts 5th on the grid, so he's got that at least. And he is in the lead of the race, according to where he is on the track. He is currently heading into Maggots while everybody else is heading out of Cops. So, I mean, foreshadowing at its finest, ladies and gentlemen.
Very subtle. A statement of intent from Testwill, ladies and gentlemen, as he heads on to the Hanger Straight. My prediction for the win today, someone goes for a spot of lawn mowing, and then this is this is what you tuned in to see, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely cropping the Maggots and Beckett's complex. It's certainly a unique way of warming up your tyres. But as we see the drivers frantically weaving to get any morsel of temperature and heat into their tyres, I am going to make a bold prediction from P7 on the grid. I think F1 Alex is going to win. That is my prediction. Whether it'll be right, I'm not sure. I think I predicted Ricky to win last week, and he ended up 14th. Sorry. But you never know. Today, like Joseph said, we've turned over new leaves. We have broadened our horizons. The scope of our genius exceeds the bounds of actual consciousness. And we are getting ready to line up on the grid, ready for this feature race. Testwill has been parked there and waiting for everyone else. He's just been having a great time waiting for proceedings. He's given his statement of intent. Number 5 adorning his car. He is in P5 for the race, so that is very appropriate. They've wasted no time at all in preparing themselves for this feature race spectacle around the birthplace of Formula 1. And soon enough, when the atmosphere begins to build, we have the 5 red lights for the British Grand Prix feature race. Lights out and away we go, and a great start from Adam Sanderson. Absolutely like a bullet from a gun. He's flown off towards turn 1. A very poor start from Nogueira in contrast. Racing immediately moves up to 2nd, Ricky to 3rd, Testwill ascending into 4th, and now it's a mad dash to the inside line for the village complex. As to the outside goes Testwill off Ricky. Space left as there's plumes of smoke flying about, and argy-bargy in the background. As we see, Formula Karim has not had the greatest of starts. He'll try and make progress, but it's Testwill on the move down the inside towards Brooklands corner. Joseph trying to crown himself the prediction prince, and he's gone onto a flying start. Testwill into 3rd as Luke Howick and F1 Alex go into combat. Plenty of fighting up and down the field.
Yeah, and I mean, your prediction not too far off. F1 Alex is looking incredibly quick so far at the start of this race, even if he hasn't made the progress that maybe you'd think he would do. Nogueira with an awful start. He is the only driver that F1 Alex has passed so far. But the pace that he showed so far and the ability to just avoid all of the incidents that have gone on, as it was a mad dash, as you said, through sector number 1. It was absolutely unbelievable. There was 3 wide pretty much throughout the lower echelons of the points to the lower echelons of the drivers in general. But yeah, Razin Chai looking to catch up to Adam Sanderson. Adam had the greater launch. Razin has had the greater first lap, and we're going to see a battle, I'm sure, as we head into turn number 1 and we exit the final corner now with Razin Chai 2.2 seconds behind. But a final corner not to be remembered from Razin Chai, but one to be remembered for Adam Sanderson as he takes the fastest lap of the race. But think about it, DRS is going to come into play soon, and Test will. He's 1.3 seconds behind. There's yellow flags out, as I believe that is our very own Gareth Allen. He's off into the gravel. Devastating stuff for, well, Carl, but Duncan off as well. And they both picked up penalties. They both dropped to the back of the grid. Infratic also has had some issues. It looks like there's a pile-up in the first sector, and it's a virtual safety car.
Yeah, someone without a front wing. It's one of the VARs. I think Blackmere has he's got no nose whatsoever. It's a terrible time for the VAR driver, and he's descended down to 19th. And plumb last as a result. Something we didn't really talk about as well in the midst of all of the fury of competition was Nogueira. Started P2. He's already down to P10. I saw Gwatz overtaking him. Kryzix has managed to do him as well at some point on this lap. It has been simply the most catastrophic of starts to proceedings from the front row of the grid. A virtual safety. In fact, no, scratch that. I see a safety car already emerging from the pit lane, as it's just parked up on the Wellington Straight. Bert Mylander's going to have some rest and relaxation for a little bit whilst everyone else comes around. But already a safety car, and well, considering everyone else is pottering around, all seems relatively well. Seems like a slightly soft safety car in my opinion, but we'll gloss over that for the time being. Adam Sanderson will lead the field round Stowe, albeit in a formation. Razin Chai up to P2, Testwell in P3, and with the field being bunched up as a bunch of drivers feint themselves towards the pit lane, see if anyone will dare to be insanely strategic. And someone has been, in fact a couple of drivers have. Gwatz is into the pit lane, as is Formula Kai, as they'll rapidly ascend up the pecking order, courtesy of the pit lane cutting off the final 2 corners completely. But a couple of other drivers in, opting to go for a very early pit stop here. We saw this in Portugal as well. Just a tiny bit of a tyre offset as Gwatz does come in fact, that looks like to serve a little bit of a time penalty as well. So, just clearing that off his name, but giving himself a tyre offset as well. Still plenty of time to go in this one. In fact, 26 laps. But a little tyre offset could make a big difference here.
It was unfortunate, actually, for Gwatz, who picked up that penalty because he came into the pits, and so the game thought that he'd overtaken, and so 10 seconds worth of time was added to his time. Obviously, it's been taken off now because he served it in the pits. But yeah, speaking of tyre offset, though, it could explain why the Trident of Nogueira got off to such a bad start. He is, I believe, on the hard compounded tyre, and I think the rest, yeah, there you go. He's the leader, actually, on the hard compounded tyre, just ahead, by the way, of Formula Kareem, who had an awful start. He was 1.6 seconds off the field, something like that, in the first couple of sectors. But he's fought his way back up to 10th through some sort of magic, because it's not like he's just ahead of all the drivers that came into the pits. Infratic and Dragonflies are behind, so maybe, well, I don't know how he's managed to work his way up there, but Formula Kareem does Formula Kareem things, and he just makes 2 overtakes like they're nothing. And that now, because of the safety car, the neutralization of the race, he's going to be able to fight his way back up the order now. He's going to be able to get his way back into the fight, just as Testwheel was, because the DRS was lost for the Rodin Carlin driver. He's back into it now. The race for everybody is now back on.
All neutralised for the time being, but we saw him Portimao out as only a 1 tyre compound offset in terms of the soft and the medium being at play. The soft and hard this weekend, that just exacerbates the issue even more. We saw it there. That's probably why, like you say, Nogueira's had a really torrid time at the start of this race. Formula Karim as well, not getting off the blocks at all quickly. But this safety car also assists the soft runners a little bit. Those tyres are going to die off significantly quicker, courtesy of them being soft tyres. But equally, they do get to save that tyre life a little bit now and are able to preserve the pace of the softer compound. It could just assist them that little bit more as we head into this race even further. Just a little thing to add to the ever-unfolding chapters of the Formula 2 Creator Series.
And there is many a chapter, there's many a plot twist, and I'm sure this race is not quite yet decided, as we've got Gareth Allen and Blackmere massively off. They might not even catch up to the field as the safety car comes in, which I'm expecting to be on this lap. Gareth Allen coming in for the hard compounded tyre. Don't know if Blackmere did come into the pits actually, or if he was just incredibly slow down the main straight for whatever reason it may be. But the VAR driver is in P18. Gareth is in P19, 19th and plumb last so far, and it will be a case of whether he can catch up as to whether the safety car will come in this lap. It's all down to you, Gareth. Come on, mate. This is your time. But Adam Sanderson, while Gareth is catching up, Adam Sanderson will lead us away for that safety car restart. And if it's anything like his race start, it's going to be an absolute flyer.
All will be revealed very, very shortly, I assume, as we are just approaching the end of the second sector split. Notification at the top. Will it arrive at the moment? No, it doesn't. Safety car looks like it will be out for another lap. I'm sure some of you are also asking, by the way, is there a wild card for this week? You've probably gathered by the lack of us talking about... No, there isn't a wild card this week. In fact, there is a wild card. His name is Gareth Allen. He is our wild card. He's going to do amazing things for us today. He is plumb last, but never say never. And the safety car has stayed out for one more lap. Gives Blackmere and Gareth the chance to just catch up to the back of the pack, because we're waiting to see if Gareth will reveal himself, so we can see what kind of stress he might have put himself under, or whether he's just having a good time. Because that's what we're here to do. We're here to have in the Creator Series. We're here to have just a damn good time. As Watson Ultra Killer apparently are sorting out positions under the safety car. Not entirely sure what's happened there, but anyway, looks like they have all sorted it out. Still under safety car, as into the pits once again comes Blackmere for another set of tyres, or whether that's to clear a penalty. It's another pit stop the VAR drivers had to make, and yes, it is to serve another penalty. A smattering of penalties towards the back of the grid, luckily cleared for him, but it's more catch-up work to do with the safety car, which, Joseph, we assume, for real this time, is going to be in at the end of this lap.
It's got to come in at the end of this lap. I mean, even Gareth's been able to catch up to the field, or he will do, at the end of this lap at least. And Blackmere, he's quite significantly off. 23 seconds off Gareth, 5 seconds off the rest of the field. But yeah, Gareth catches up now into, I've blanked on it, Luffield is the corner that he's in. We've got currently, for Blackmere even, he is in Aintree, just coming out of it now, and it's going to be a race against time to see if the VAR driver is able to catch up. He is going to, hopefully, be able to take it to the end of the race with 24 laps left on those, or 24 laps left in this race. It will be 23 as they cross the line, and with hard tyres on, which you don't imagine have had much wear on them, but we will see as we head out onto the straight, the hangar straight. Is it going to be safety car in this lap, or is Burnt Mylander going to go out for another lap? Sorry, I had to make a James Bond joke after I messed up on the name of the straight, but it is going to be, it looks like it, another lap under the safety car. It is indeed going to be another lap under the safety car, and Adam Sanderson, he will be tearing his beautiful locks out, waiting to get going once again.
Still more time, though, for the soft tyres to be preserved that little bit more. Just opens it up a little bit so they can pull the trigger. They have a slightly wider window to pull the trigger, strap on the hard tyres, and that will be that. Gareth Allen, though, is in again for a pit stop. And if this means a safety car is going to stay out to the end of this lap as well, I'm not going to be very happy. But he's getting rid of the hard compound tyres, possibly for a set of softs to have a really big tyre offset. So could be going for a mad charge up the ranks. You never know, as Dragonflies and Gwats are ascending positions, as I can't even tell, they're all sorting positions out behind the safety car. Not entirely sure why, but anywho, we'll gloss over that. Lap number 6 of the Silverstone feature race. We are still under safety car after a little bit of a pile-up and a skirmish on lap number 1. And Gareth Allen's got a 10-second time penalty next to his name that he hasn't been able to clear. But he is out on the track on soft tyres. And if the safety car stays out the whole race, he will clear all the penalties. But he won't be able to overtake anyone, which is rather unfortunate. But there you go. What can you do? Adam Sanderson, then, has just another lap. All the while, it's going to boil on his mind in terms of how he's going to execute the restart. Do you dare to do it early, around about Stowe corner, maybe even mid-corner, to really catch people out? Or do you set yourself up for the best exit out of the final corners to get that sumptuous slingshot and just get yourself out of arm's length and harm's way? But don't ever count out Racing and Tesco behind. They had strong starts to the race, and they're going to look to build on those constantly once we get back on the green flag conditions.
And we will be getting back to green flag conditions. The safety car has decided to come in this lap. Burnt of the Silverstone circuit, and we will be getting away under the control of Adam Sanderson in P1. He's very experienced around this track, as we've learnt over recent times, and he is taking his time to get going. Razin will be desperate to be able to pin Adam Sanderson right down into turn number 1. A very difficult corner to go into if you're struggling on the safety car restart and you get jumped by somebody. Then it's difficult because you want to stay ahead, but you don't want to take those too many risks. But then you do, because you want to stay in that P1. There's a lot of things to think about, essentially. And Adam Sanderson, he's not going to think about any of that, because this safety car restart has been exemplary. He pulls away from Razin Chai, a 3/10 gap. And Testwheel, he's had an even worse safety car restart relative to Razin. He's 5/10 back already. It doesn't look like anybody was caught out by that. As I say that guy Vince and Kryzik side by side. Vince holding on to that position ahead of Kryzik for the time being. But the two ART teammates will come together in a scrap as they head now down the Wellington straight. Slipstream is available for Kryzik. Slipstream is also available for Razin, who just tucks back in. He's biding his time in the AIX car, and you'd think it's only a matter of time. Maybe when the DRS comes out that he and Adam start to scrap. But in the meantime, all the drivers just trying to slot in under a second behind everybody. I say under a second. Nagira continues to have issues with his race pace because he's 1.1 seconds now behind Kryzik, despite the fact that two ART cars have fought in. Fratic and Gwatz are both out of the DRS range as well, only on the first lap of the safety car restart. But Razin, he's closer than ever to Adam Sanderson, just above a 10th behind, and the slipstream will be so beneficial for the AIX driver as he looks to head into the lead of the race. Is he going to make this move into here? He is going to try and make the move, but Adam just covering it off perfectly. Razin with the exit. He could take this position. He could take the P1. He's trying to take the inside line into the final chicane, but he's just, I think there was contact there a little bit. He got a little bit overzealous with the move, and Adam holds on to the position now, has the momentum as the fastest lap of the race gets traded between everybody. Kryzik looks to hold on to it, but yeah, Razin getting a little bit ambitious. The risk-taking I was talking about earlier, and the risk certainly didn't reap the rewards.
Sensational development, though, happening just after the restart of this feature race. 8 cars practically line astern in this hungry caterpillar that has formed. DRS not enabled yet. Still time for Adam Sanderson to breathe a sigh of relief, at least for a moment, because Racing will be right on it like a car bonnet. We saw him try on that last lap, on that restart as well. I think Racing thought Adam went slightly sooner than he thought. He made contact with the back of the Prema car. And it was just Adam Sanderson setting up the exit out of the final complex onto the Hamilton straight. All the while, big battles going on. Kryzix is up to P7, almost directly alongside F1 Alex. Can't get it done though. In towards Cops Corner. We are on board with the high-tech of Ricky for a brief moment. As now Kryzix is going for it into the Magus Beckett's complex, and there's contact. Contact that sends the ART into a half spin, but somehow manages to save it with an armful of shock. That is unbelievable from Kryzix, and now has a second bite of the cherry, suckering down into the slipstream as Racing could try and move into Stowe, but remains behind the Prema car for the moment. Just biding his time as there's a huge smoke screen in towards Stowe as F1 Alex goes wide, chips 2 positions to the ART drivers. Adam Sanderson holding the lead, and then behind this 8-car dicey duel, well, there's Nogueira and Karim to decide who has the hard tyre supremacy. Still not got to that crossover point just yet, but they know it's coming. They just got to weather the storm.
And at the moment, they are certainly suffering a storm. 2.1 seconds between F1 Alex and Nogueira. Now 2.2 as they head through the first sector. And Formula Karim, well, he's not looking much better. If he was, then he'd be past the Trident by now. But it's a struggle on those hards early on in this race. I think it was difficult for them to get them up to temperature because it was the race start and the safety car restart where they suffered issues. Yellow flags out for, I believe, Formula Kai, who is struggling around Aintree. Indeed it is. He's able to get going again, but Formula Karim, he's heard me and he's decided to prove me wrong. He's past Nogueira, and now the Campos driver can push ahead. 8 laps have been done on these hard compound of tyres. Surely this is around where the crossover point is with the soft compound of tyre. I know the safety car was out. That will delay it a little bit longer, but yeah, I think those hards, they'll start to come into their own. Again, I said it last time, but he's closer than ever than to Adam, and it's truer than ever. He's right on the rear, and DRS will be available to him for, I believe, the first time in this race on this lap. And Razin using the slipstream, pulling out to the outside line. This could be the move. It is indeed. Victory is within Razin's sights, and and first place. It's certainly a good start.
It certainly is, but there's a long way to the light at the end of the tunnel. Still 20 laps to go of this Silverstone track, but we do have a new race leader. The AIX man of Racing Chai crosses the line to take us into double figures. Lap number 10, and Adam Sanderson looking for instant retaliation. Tried to push Racing through the first corner, but got caught out by the aerodynamic wash with just how close he was. Had to drop back, but now it's his turn to have the DRS. But good news for all these 8 cars in this massive train, as Adam Sanderson has a first-class ticket to a helping hand of DRS and some suckering up of slipstream. As to the inside he goes. It's all mightily aggressive from Adam Sanderson. Racing will hold it round the outside of Brooklands just to maintain position, and he does so as Testwill, nipping at the heels of the Prema car, gets a decent exit out of Luffield, but Adam Sanderson ultimately has the momentum on his side. Meanwhile, F1 Alex is getting his popcorn out at the back of this train, watching Adam Sanderson dive to the inside of Cobb's corner. He's not letting this one go down without a fight. He's got a score to settle with the AIX car, but it's opened up the door for Testwill in the Rodin Carlin car into Maggots and Beckett, furiously fighting away all these 8 drivers. There's yellow flags all over the place, because I think Gareth Allen's had a moment, but this is ridiculous. Look at the runaway train, there's contact. Off the track goes Luke Howick, and Kryzix, the unfortunate party. He's got front wing damage on the left-hand side, and what was a sensational start has suddenly descended to the depths of despair into the pits, and contact with F1 Alex as well. As I break the sound barrier, Kryzix can't break enough, hits the back of the Invicta car, and the prediction prince has to step down because I've probably fluffed it.
It's certainly looking like that, but I mean, there must have been contact for F1 Alex, which is the reason he comes into the pits, because just of how chaotic it was. It was barely very obvious that he was even in that battle because of how much drama was going on with the top three, with Luke Howard, with Kryzix. And, well, speaking of drama, Razin Chai and Adam Sanderson swap positions once again. Razin's going to fight it back, though, because the end of the DRS zone beckoned for Adam, and Razin level playing field, and he's got the outside as the traction, and the position is taken by the Prema. They could be making a move into Cops. We've seen moves work here, we've seen moves not, and Razin is thinking of those that don't, as he's bump drafting Adam through there instead. And they're going to come out to the third sector now with Test Will looking for gaps, and surely at some point the two green cars, they're going to be pushing forward. They're going to be hassling Adam for that first place. But at the moment, they're looking closer to each other than they are to Adam just ahead. But it's only by a hair. And Razin Chai makes the move around the outside of Adam Sanderson into the lead of the race. Testwell looks to get his nose in there as well, and so does Ricky as they head into the final couple of corners. Now that somebody in the pits, Razin holds the lead of the race. It's going to be Ricky who comes into the pits, the high-tech car, to get rid of those soft compound of tyres, and it's going to be Razin to lead us into lap 12 of this race. Adam Sanderson follows in second place. Testwell, his latest target is going to be Adam Sanderson for that second place instead of Razin, as it has been the last couple of laps. And the Rodin Carlin car, surely at some point, this patience that he's had, this incredible patience, surely it's wearing thin.
Don't forget the other dynamic that's developing, ladies and gentlemen, as I think F1 Alex actually didn't have damage. I think he saw how hard everybody else was battling and decided now's the prime time to do the undercut while they're fighting hammer and tong and balls to the wall. As down the inside, tries to go that guy Vince, manages to get the nose in as he just ducks underneath the Rodin Carlin car of Test Will, and now it's momentum on the outside of Luffield, as we've seen so many times this week here in Formula 2, using the slipstream of the cars ahead to great advantage. That guy Vince ascends up into the podium places provisionally, as Adam Sanderson again looking for the assault on the AIX car ahead. Two very different approaches to the lead battle here. Razin Chai played the patient game, bided his time. Adam Sanderson says, stuff that. Attack, attack, attack. The Prema Assassin has been all over Razin Chai like a rabid animal. You can't shake him off whatsoever, but all the while these four are fighting us down the inside, goes Adam Sanderson once again, darting and diving to the space that was gaping for the Prema driver. He can't quite make it stick, and into the pits comes that guy Vince. He too is going to perform the undercut, but as I was saying, look behind. P4 and 5 now they will be on those hard compound tyres. It will be Formula Karim and Nogueira, and we'll see the proper pace of the hard compound tyres in clear air.
It's surely the crossover point now, which is why we're seeing so many soft runners come into the pits. They've decided that those softs are no longer working for them, and watch that gap between Formula Karim and Testwheel come down as the grip is just superior for the hard compound tyre runners at the moment. It's actually gone up, but that's because of a wobble for Formula Karim as he headed out of Aintree. But it will come down very, very soon, and surely at some point one of the top three is going to pull the trigger. It was one of the top four, and then the lap before it was one of the top five as Vince and Ricky come in. Kryzix is apparently on the wet compounded tyre, which I don't quite believe. But Formula Karim, yeah, 3.2 seconds is the gap between himself and Testwheel, and I'm sure we're going to see he is actually genuinely on the wets. I'm speechless. I think I'm not 100% sure what's going on there, but I mean, maybe he read it wrong. Maybe he read that it was Brazil and we were doing the rainbow tyre challenge. I don't know, but he's in P19, which, I mean, it's... Anyway, yellow flags at Kryzix. Speaking of, he's gone round down the straight somehow, and yeah, not his day. It was his day yesterday, quote unquote, in the sprint, but yeah, today has not gone to plan, and he's just going to try to get going once again. Razin, in the meantime, pulls the trigger. So does Adam, and so does Testwheel. The top three coming in. This is where we see whether the undercut has worked, as Formula Karim will take the lead of this race. Nogueira will come through in second. And as virtual safety car out, maybe for Kryzix again, who's had issues. But I mean, this is going to throw something into the wind, because this is stabilized the race. It's neutralized the race. Razin and Adam Sanderson and Testwill, they're going to be absolutely loving this, because they're going to come out ahead of those that they were fighting with that guy Vince and Ricky. They pulled the trigger at the exact right time, and it's paid off in their favor. And we can't even claim that it was done intentionally, because that guy Vince was one of the ones caught out.
Absolutely. They have Lady Luck is well and truly on their side as we head into the fulcrum point of this race. But no, Adam Sanderson has played chicken just a bit too much with the virtual safety car. He's got a drive-through penalty for exceeding the delta. Our pole sitter, the hometown hero, it's now wreaking havoc in the world of Adam Sanderson. A drive-through penalty that will put paid to any hopes he might have had at this stage. Still plenty of time to go though. Half of this British Formula 2 feature race still to unravel, but that is not an ideal scenario as the fight for the lead now of course changes. Formula Karim and Nogueira can go head to head. Last week's feature race and sprint race winner in P1, last week's pole sitter in P2, has the DRS, could look to the inside, but chooses, well, decides and elects to remain behind of the Campos driver. By the way, congratulations to Formula Karim. It looks like Campos was so impressed, he has managed to get a drive for a team more than once. So well done him. As we head on to lap number 15 then, it is, well, it's the greatest of news for Rasin Chai and for Testwill in terms of the scope of their race. For Adam Sanderson, he would have also been thrown into the conversation, as there is plumes of smoke erupting out of thin air fundamentally here at the British Grand Prix. Across the line goes our provisional race leader when the pit stops are all said and done. But one more virtual safety car and one safety car could completely change things here. Let's not forget, as there's a yellow flag in Sector 3. It looks like Gareth Allen's gone off again at Stowe Corner. He is managing to point the right way. There is no damage on the Invicta Virtuosi car. Just emotional.
Yeah, he will be disappointed with how his race has run. I mean, he'll be tearing his hair out at the fact that he's now 51 seconds off of the lead of the race, with no real chance of getting back in. 13 seconds worth of penalties as well is what he has. But Nogueira, he's not got a penalty. He's just 3/10 behind Formula Karim. And being 3/10 behind Formula Karim is no easy feat, especially when you're 15 laps into a race and you're on exactly the same strategy. The Trident car is going to have the DRS as they head now onto the back straight. And we could be seeing a move for the lead of this race. Blackmere, by the way, 2 stops is what he's done so far. He finds himself in 3rd. But Nogueira, he's looking to find himself in 1st. Indeed, he does.